doing some wet fly fishing around the edges of the lakes, up around the Highlands and all around Tasmania is a great way to start the season. With the high lake levels, you get a lot of fish up in the shallows, hunting those big food items like frogs and galaxia as they put on condition after the spawning season. Get some really exciting fishing. You'll often see tailing fish and fish charging at your fly to intercept it right in the shallows. So it's a great way to start the season. We're going to jump in here today, show you everything you need to know about this technique. So the best time of the year to practice this technique is August through to about October, so early season. We want those cool conditions and high lake levels like you can see here behind me, with the waters really flooded up into the marshy areas. So we get a lot of that at this time of the year due to the increased rainfall, snowfall around the Highlands. It's also coupled with the spawning season for the frogs and galaxia that come in here in the shallows to do their thing, and that's what the fish are coming in to chase those. And with the higher water levels, the fish are pretty happy to be in here chasing them around. So that's the best time of the year to practice the technique. The fish are also looking to put back on some condition after the spawning season. So they're really going after those high protein food sources. So all those things put together is the ideal scenario for practicing this technique. The weather conditions that you're looking for are these overcast and quite windy days are good. We get a lot of these through this time of the year, so that's ideal. So the overcast conditions make the fish a bit more comfortable to again come into these shallow areas and feed, and also give you a bit of cover as well, so the fish aren't going to see you or your flies landing on the water. And a bit of wind on the water is really good too. That's going to help you throw those weighted flies a little bit further, and also gives the water a bit of chop as well, so the fish can't see us as well. Doesn't really matter so much about delicate presentations with the fly. It's okay if it lands a bit heavy on the water, so you can often get away with this technique on really windy days like we've got up here today. So the gear that we're going to be using today, we've just got a 9-foot 6-weight rod, so that's really good for this technique for a few different reasons. So first of all, we're going to be throwing some weighted flies on a fairly longish leader, so we want that bit of extra power to be able to throw those flies out there at a good distance. We are going to be trying to throw them at a reasonable length to give ourselves a good amount of strips in the retrieve. And we also want to be able to still land those flies fairly accurately. So we're going to be picking out those gaps in the weed or in the grassy edges where we think there might be fish laying. And we really want to make sure that we're accurate with those casts. Just got a simple weight forward floating fly line as well. Don't really need to use any sink tips or intermediate lines for this because we're going to be fishing in shallow water. 3 or 4x leader on the end of that. And we are going to want to fish 2 flies today, so what I'm going to do is just take off another 5 feet of 4x tippet there. So that's going to give me a leader of around sort of 14 to 15 feet in length. So, and I'm just going to tie some tippet on there, leaving myself a dropper to attach my second fly to. So I'm just going to tie a pretty simple triple surgeon's knot there, and that's going to give me a point to tie my second fly onto. So fly selection's pretty straightforward. We're just going to be using flies such as woolly buggers, streamers, little magoos, things like that. So we're going to want to pick a weighted one of those, usually with a bead head of some sort for the point fly or your end fly, and then an unweighted fly with probably a little bit more flash as the top one. So we might start off there today with our little orange beaded black and red streamer. It's a really good fly as our point fly. Little weighted orange bead there to get it down a little bit, and a little bit of flash there in the body just to help it stand out. Imitates things like those frogs and galaxias really well. So we'll start off with that one as our point fly there. On the dropper, we're going to want to choose something that's not as heavily weighted, so it sits a little bit higher up in the water, and something with a little bit of flash as well. So to start off here with today, we'll go with our little gold sparkler, which is a really good fly just for attracting a bit of attention, and does also pretty readily get eaten as well. So that one's going to be unweighted, which will help it sit a little bit higher, and that works really well as a top dropper. So with that leader setup, you can easily change between flies, so you can fish with those flies for a little while, see how you go, and it's pretty easy to change over both that dropper there, and then there's our point fly down at the end, the little black and red streamer. So pretty simple setup. 6-weight rod, 14-foot sort of leader with 2 flies, and that's going to give us a pretty good starting point to go and get after some of these fish that are chasing around in the shallows here. So a few other pieces of gear that you're going to need to do this technique with. So at the time of the year that we're practicing this technique, as we said, through that winter and spring period, can get some pretty harsh conditions up here in the Highlands. So it's really important to be prepared with your clothing first of all. So I've got a few layers underneath, a good down jacket, things like fingerless gloves, beanie, neck guard, you know, so you're nice and warm. Nice thick pants under your waders because the water temps are still pretty cold. So you can get a lot of snow, ice, rain, wind up here in the Highlands through the time of the year that we're practicing this technique, and that's great for the fishing, but it just pays to be prepared with your clothing and layers. So good pair of waders, a good vest, sunnies, all of that sort of stuff is going to keep you nice and protected throughout the day, make your fishing as enjoyable as possible, and keep you nice and warm and protected out here on the water. And that's a good fish. That is a nice, fat, healthy, wild Tassie brown trout that was just sitting in there waiting for something to go past and just smashed it. So another good fish. We'll take our time here again. He's taken off. Great fun there to just walk along, put the fly into all of those spots that look likely, any little deeper pieces of water, anywhere there's a bit of weed or some rocks or structure of any sort, and more often than not there's going to be a big hungry brown trout sitting there waiting. There we go, lovely wild brown trout there. Great fun up here in the Central Highlands in the spring. You can hear the frogs in the background there. Big hungry brown trout, good fun. fish. Giving it a little pause can often just induce a take. So the reason that we like to wade the lake edges rather than fish with the boat when we're fishing this particular technique is it really allows us to pick through the spots where the fish are likely to be a little bit more closely. So when we're drifting in the boat, you're probably moving a little bit quick just to be able to really pick out those spots where the fish are waiting for those food items that we spoke about. So by walking, you can really have a nice subtle approach, move along nice and slowly, and pick your way through that water a lot better than you can when we're out in the boat. And the other thing is the fish that we're targeting are going to be in quite close. So we're talking sort of, anywhere from a foot of water to maybe 3 feet of water at the most. So we don't really need the boat to fish in that depth of water. So just by wading gives us a nice subtle approach and really allows us to keep those flies in those areas where the fish are going to be hanging out. So obviously fishing the wet flies out of the boat, lock style, is really effective at this time of the year as well, and we've done a separate video on that. But for this particular technique where we're targeting those fish that are in close in the shallows around the flooded edges, really wading is the way to go. So you can see here up ahead of me, we've got this big flooded area here up into the grass. So that's the ideal spot that you're looking for. So I've got some deeper water on the right hand side of that edge, and then some shallow parts where it's really flooded up into there, and that's ideal. So I'm going to approach that up along that edge and fish that deeper edge as it drops off to the right there, and also up into the shallow water as well. So that's an ideal spot for a fish to sit. So we'll tick along there and see what we can grab. There we go, one there. Classic spot there for a fish to be, right along that grassy edge. Just the perfect place. Crazy amount of fight in them today. I don't know what they're doing. So great morning out there at Little Pine. A couple of fish landed, that really nice one, and a couple of others that definitely earned their freedom. So great morning out there, shows the effectiveness there of the wet flies around these flooded lake edges early in the season. Going to grab a bit of lunch and then we might shoot off to one of the other lakes. So beauty of fishing up here in the Highlands is that you've got so many lakes close by. So we'll jump over to another lake and fish the same technique at another lake and hopefully show you how effective it is all around the Highlands. So back out on the water now. Always good to grab a nice warm lunch back at the car on a pretty cold, windy day. So bit of a location change, but we're still going to fish the same technique, the wet flies around some of these edges, around the weedy and marshy shorelines. So we'll jump back in here and continue on this afternoon. There we go. Oh, good fish there. Just crushed it right where he should have been, in along that weedy edge, and just came out and just attacked the fly. Pretty exciting to see that fish charge out of those weeds and intercept that fly. They're really aggressive, these big browns, early in the season. You can hear the frogs in the background there. Clearly that's what this fish was after. That's another great fish to start off the afternoon. Another beautiful spring brown trout up here in the Central Highlands. Just fishing around the weedy edges. So effective at this time of the year. These big fish hunting around in the shallows for food. Great fun to come out here, and yeah, that fish just absolutely smashed the fly, so we'll get him back in and continue on. With the casting and retrieving part of this technique, your casts could be at various lengths and on different angles as well. So you probably want to start off short when you sort of walk along and come to a new spot. So starting off short and then lengthening out your casts as you go. So you just, again, not leaving any water behind. You want to make sure you fish all those spots. So that bit of a grid system that we talk about in front of you, so fishing close and then further away and different angles as well to make sure that you cover all of that water. You're mostly going to be fishing with the wind behind you because you're going to get out wading and fishing along the shoreline that the wind's blowing along. So it shouldn't be too hard to cast, and we want to try and be quite accurate. So you can see these weedy sort of clumps as I'm working along. We want to be landing our fly in and around those. So any clear patches of water, any little pockets you can see that look likely for a fish to be there, they're the spots that you want to be hitting. So we're not just throwing the flies blindly out in front of us and retrieving them. We're making those casts into those spots where we think there's going to be a fish and working our way through as we go. With your retrieves, they can vary a little bit day to day, but generally, if you think about what you're imitating being frogs, galaxia, little bait fish, that sort of thing, those animals tend to move quite quickly, particularly when there's a big hungry brown trout chasing them. So the retrieves are sort of quite a short, sharp, jerky sort of retrieve that generally works quite well, given that that's what we're trying to imitate. So it's a short strip, about 30 centimetres or so, and it's quite a fast action to get that fly moving through the water and get the fish's attention, get the fish to come over and have a look at it. And if it looks like it's going to get away, that fish is more than likely going to intercept it. So work on those things, nice accurate casts in and around the weeds, and then keeping that fly in the zones where we think there's going to be fish, and then a nice short sharp action on the retrieve. Work your way along, cover all the water, and you should have a pretty good day doing some fishing up here in the spring. There we go. Oh, another one there. Hey. Oh. There we go. Perfect spot for a fish to be again. Just sitting in there, and didn't he have a go at that? Try and keep him out of some of these weeds here. How good's that? a lot of the fish that you catch at this time of the year and fishing this technique are going to be these big, strong brownies. So when you do get one on, just take your time. You're really in no rush. Try and keep them out of the weeds. But this is a classic brown trout fight. Just determined to get to the bottom or get around any pieces of weed that they can. But take your time. You'll get there eventually.
Myself for a minute, I'm too much better to stop to rethink it. Bad vibes are coming like waves. I like to decide why I wanna break down for a minute. It's okay to take a second just to.
There we go. Beautiful fish in the net there. Big brown trout. Happy with that. Fishing the wets around the shallows here. Really effective technique at this time of the year, and just a stunning fish to catch. So another cracking fish there. Big male brown trout, just over 4 pounds. So sitting in here, just attacked the flies that went past. Put up a great fight. And too good to catch once, so we'll just slip him away through here. He's ready to go. Away he goes. I think that's a pretty good fish to wrap up our segment there on fishing the wets around the edges of the lakes here. Super effective technique and great fun, as you can see from that last fish there. They just come out and just grab it. Really exciting takes, and they put on a good fight when you hook them. So great fun. Get out here. Don't be afraid of getting out if the weather's a little bit rough too. Often those cloudy, rainy, even a bit of snow is all right. Always good to get out here and just wade along the edges, fish some little wet flies, and you'll catch some great fish. So get out there and enjoy.